All right, so I'm here with Ahmed, who was kind enough to be first, be on the first episode of the podcast. So why don't you just start by giving us like a 30-second intro of who you are and then a quick intro of your company.
Yeah, so my name is Ahmed. I'm the founder of a company called Rupt. We do account sharing prevention and monetization for online companies. Before that, I was a CTO, product manager, and a director of engineering and product. And I come from a technical background. Is that enough, or do you want me to go a little bit more?
Maybe just a little bit more on the company for people that are a little slower like myself to understand.
No, no, no. So this company that I'm working on right now, it's called Rupt. What it does is it solves a problem where companies have subscription models and people purchase one subscription model, but then they share it with a bunch of different people. And these companies lose a lot of money and spend more on infrastructure costs because people are sharing and not paying for proper accounts. So it's very difficult to find technically to like know who's doing that and measure how many people are doing that. So Rupt provides the technology that lets companies know how many people are sharing, which accounts are being shared, and then converts them from account sharers to happy paying customers.
Okay, so this would solve like kind of when I think about like the Netflix issue of password sharing, that's kind of the same thing
Yes,
or the
yes.
problem.
So Netflix is the bigger player here, but you can also think about educational companies, Udemy,
Oh
right?
yeah.
E-learning. You can think about publishing companies like Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, New York Times, all of these, like they have a lot of massive sharing going on. And then you can also think about just general SaaS companies, right? Uh, a lot of SaaS out there where you can just purchase one seat and then share it with the whole, like the rest of your team. It's just very difficult to do it and do it accurately. And if people do it wrong, it just backfires spectacularly.
Yeah, yeah, my initial thoughts are definitely a big problem that probably every subscription company has, but very, I can't even begin to think of how to solve it. So that's cool that you took that on. So how did you get the idea for this product?
All right. So this is an interesting question. And I'll take a little bit of time talking about this. And
Sure.
because it relates directly to the idea of your podcast. How do you go from zero, from nothing to something,
So,
right? The idea of this came, and I've only told this story once, but I founded a company before this called Cluster, and it was doing okay until at some point it was not, and we were in trouble, and we had 2 months of runway left, right? Just 2 months, and that includes everything, and I was lit out of money, right? All of my credit cards are maxed out. Everything is just completely, and I had two choices: either come up with an idea that will work fast, that will get like super fast, I will see growth, or just shut everything down um, and just go find the job, right?
yeah.
For context, I have two kids, so I have some responsibilities.
Okay.
Um, right. So, and my thought there was, you know what? I'm not going to give up until the very last moment, like until I'm absolutely 100% out of all money and out of all resources to pay for anything. Then I'll go find like a job because I just wanted to continue working on the startup, and the people that believed in me and invested in me early on, I didn't want to let them down. So 2 months of runway, either we need to pivot to something that will work and work fast, or you just shut down and go find a job. So I looked at a bunch of ideas. How did we come up with ideas? While I was working on Clastra, I was writing down some of the pains and problems that I faced that I could not find solutions for, right? One of them happened to be account sharing because there was a lot of people sharing accounts. They told us we can see some of their problems, but we could not handle it. It's just too technically difficult and time consuming and outside of our area of expertise. And when I searched the market for it, there's nothing like it. There's nothing that solves. So I decided to build an MVP for this and go to market. And things happen after that. Happy to like talk more about it, but this is how I found like I needed an idea that's real, that solves a real pain, ideally a pain that I've experienced, and it just solves a real problem for customers, right? So finding a real problem is often tricky, right? Especially for B2B customers or for businesses, because you can fantasize about them having a problem, but you don't really know the extent of the problem and what they may have tried to solve it and what options they have to solve it, unless you're subject matter expert, you've been there before, or you've really talked to a lot of them. So this is how we came up with the idea, and then like happy to walk you through what happened after that, but I'll
Yeah.
let you guide the questions.
So let's see. So were you intimidated by the idea at first, but it's like you needed something that you knew would work, so you're willing to just take it on head first?
So I was evaluating a bunch of different ideas, and I have like a list, like an actual Excel sheet with the startup ideas, like the idea that I wanted to work on. And number one, like how big is the market? Is there market for it? Like, are there a bunch of companies that will use and pay for this? And two, are there a lot of competition? Right. So if there was a lot of competition for it, I personally shied away from it. If there's even one like good competitor that's doing decently in this space, I shied away from that.
Okay.
Right. And then uh, yes. So that was it. Now, was I intimidated? I don't think, like, not by the idea, but by whether or not it's going to work. Sure, yeah, it's ridiculously
Okay.
scary, but it
So
does motivate you. It does motivate you.
yeah. So like how did you evaluate either where you could find customers or like how did you get the first customers? Did you get the first customers before building the MVP or after? What was that journey like?
Yes,
Because that's the hard part.
yes. So that's actually a good question, and so there's and this is like I think where things become quite confusing, because I've researched a lot on how to get your first customers, and a lot of people say like sell before you build, and there's a lot of material about that. That's never been successful for me. I've tried multiple ideas, and that just like maybe it worked in the early internet days, early SaaS
Yeah.
days. It's never worked for me, right? I don't know anybody who's been I don't know, like I hear stories on the internet, but hey, like the internet, um
Yeah.
like take everything with a grain of salt. For me, that's never worked. That's number one. So I've always been a fan of building a solid MVP. Like it's two words, solid and MVP. It has to be an MVP. You can't build everything, but it has to be an MVP. But it can't be broken. It has to be solid. It has to be really good. And then I've always restricted my MVP time frame to 4 weeks. If it like 4 weeks, 5 weeks with landing pages, releases, documentation. If you're going to do documentation, everything needs to be out the door in 5 weeks. Rupt, for context, was built in 4 weeks, like the first version of it. It was
Okay.
4 weeks of doing nothing but sleeping, coding, right? And like I worked 18 hours a day at some points, nothing else, right? But it ended up working well, and it worked like it did what it promised, and it did it well, and it only did that. Like when I look back at the early like dashboard screenshots of Rupt, I'm like, wow, how did anybody purchase this? But okay, right? Um, and in fact, actually, when I got the first few customers, I didn't believe they were still going to use it. I thought they put a fake credit card, and I'm like they're going to cancel, right? It's just, and then I see the requests going up and up and up. But to back up a little bit, um, so don't I personally don't do or don't recommend going to just selling before building. Like build an MVP that takes 5 weeks, then go sell with an MVP, right?
Yeah.
Now you have an MVP. How do you get the first paying customers? My own formula for it is I find a list of 1,000 people, 1,000 people. that may be a good target, maybe good, who will benefit, who will actually benefit. Like the goal is not to get money from them, but the goal is that they will benefit and see good return on investment in using this new product that I built. And then I reach out to them. I don't use some automation tools and like be creative about how you find these people, but make sure that they are fit. And then you reach out to them. Just like people get cold emails all the time, cold messages all the time, and cold LinkedIn requests all the time. So like 1,000 people, and like my threshold is if I can get 2 paying customers from these 1,000 people with this 5-week MVP, then I have something. If I get more, then it's likely, there's maybe I'm onto something more than I expected.
Mhm.
And this is exactly what I did for Rupt. I found 1,000 people, scraped 1,000 companies off of Product Hunt and a bunch of other websites that may see like account sharing prevention as a valuable solution. And I reached out to them, and I was surprised. Like, okay, the first 3 weeks, nothing happened. Or somebody said, oh yeah, this is like definitely something we're trying to build. I'm gonna try it out. I'm like, okay, great. But then they didn't do anything for a few weeks. It turns out they needed to free up their developers to work on this, right? But then they eventually got to it. They found some problems with the libraries, with the codes, got back to us despite all these problems. Like we fixed them, sent them back, and it was back and forth. And despite all of that, they subscribed. They like actually went in and entered their credit cards. I could not believe it. Right? I could not
How
believe
much
my
are you
eyes.
asking for the initial
So
MVP?
yeah, for the initial MVP, it was very cheap. It was very, very, very cheap. Very, very cheap. But there was no free plan. Now there's a free plan, but there was no free plan because I didn't remember. I needed something that will work fast, and I needed to validate it very quickly. And if somebody like the best way to validate something is to charge for it, like especially
Yeah.
in like B2B, right? So I'm like, you know what? I don't want something that nobody's gonna pay for. I want like but so out of these 1,000 people, like we ended up getting our first like 5 or 6 customers, paying customers, and like within a few weeks, and then it just kept growing and growing. Every week there'd be a new customer. Every week there'd be a new customer. Every week, and I could not believe my eyes. I'm like, I'm sure they entered a fake credit card, and then their first month bill came, like, and then like it kept like the number of requests, you know, that our server was handling, and it was just me at that point. Kept increasing. Like, okay, 1,000 per day, 10,000 per day, 50,000. Okay, oh, geez, wow, it's growing. It's something. There's like they're sending 1 million requests a month. I'm like, okay, very interesting. And then they paid like their first bill 90 or $100, right? Interesting. Okay, I didn't expect that because it was priced like so cheaply. You'd need to 10,000 requests for $5. That's how cheap it was. And then the first 10,000 requests were free. Let alone like talk about the pricing like at some other time and how to price and what's the pricing, but it was insanely cheap, really low. And but despite that, they paid like good money. It's not nothing, right? $100 a month is a decent amount for a customer. And they they just kept paying, and they kept, they stayed. So I decided to stay with it and grow it. But that is my formula to how do you get the first few paying customers.
So let's dig into that a little bit more. You mentioned a couple different, like you mentioned LinkedIn messaging. What channels did you all try? And then which ones ended up working the best for you?
So I tried the I national
I'm getting it too. That's funny.
national wireless emergency alert system testing. Did you get it too?
Yep, yep, I got it.
Okay,
That's
wow,
funny.
perfect timing.
Anyways, so what
Yeah.
channels did you try to market this on initially, and what worked?
So so the channel the single channel that I tried was posting on Indie Hackers, on Product Hunt, on I'm sorry, not the single channel, but the channels that I did were these Indie Hackers, Product Hunt, And then LinkedIn, just reaching out to people directly on LinkedIn. And that really was the one that's successful, right?
LinkedIn.
But my recommendation there is if you're going to do it, like, and if you build something, launch it on any platform you possibly can. Just launch, see what happens. Go put it out there.
Just like to see what sticks, and then you kind of know which channels to focus on.
Yeah. I mean, don't be a jerk and like, try to shamelessly plug yourself everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But there are platforms where people are interested in seeing what people are building and what products are out there, right? Like product hunt, like indie hackers, like Hacker News. Just go put your product out there, see what happens, and then actually like. But because of the way these are designed, your product and your launch and your what you're building may be overlooked and dismissed, and there's a lot of other people who dedicate teams to ranking high and getting visibility on these platforms. So um, you may like don't underestimate the effect of reaching out to people directly. If I got nothing from launching on all of these platforms, right? We did, but now if I had just listened to that signal of launching on these platforms, Rupt wouldn't exist today, and some people wouldn't have paying jobs, and some companies wouldn't have generated revenue. But uh, my recommendation is just try reaching out to people on LinkedIn. That may be the best channel. And be authentic, be real, be brief, right? Don't just here's what I'm building. Would you like to try it out? Like, I'd love to get your opinion. Something like that, something along these lines.
So, um, two questions. One, what did you use like Sales Navigator for this? LinkedIn Sales Navigator? Or you just messaged?
No, no, I did use an automation tool. No, no sales navigator, just a connection request with like the details of who I am, what I'm building, and it's a brief message. Like, you guys have this. I built this product for you guys. Would you be interested in trying it out? Or would love to get your feedback. Is that something you're interested in? And that really was it, right? That was the whole sales pitch.
Do you
Um,
mind sharing the automation tool name?
yes, so there's quite a few. One of them is called Walaxy or something. That was the tool that I used.
Okay.
Um, there's uh, Overloop is another tool I used. Whatever works for you, any tool that automates it. And then
Okay.
here and there, I would do some manual, right, outreach. But even then, it was very, very. It was kind of there was, now that I think about it, there was kind of a bit of detailed effort there too. So the automation campaigns is not just one size fits all. It's like, I think, 5 or 10 campaigns. So the people that I'd find on Product Hunt that are a good fit and I think would benefit from using this tool, I put them in a Product Hunt specific, right, campaign that mentions where I found them, how I found them, why I'm proposing, and the
Okay.
people that I found. Like, so it's a little bit like it's a little bit more genuine, I would say, right?
Yeah.
Because it does tell them it's not like blast everybody.
I asked because I've been playing around with LinkedIn messaging for the last month or two, and I'm doing it all manually, which I don't know why. I need to figure out a tool. And I'm just curious, like, what message format works the best for you to like build trust, not be annoying, but also like, you know, get an honest try out of people.
Yeah. So I'm not, there are people who are experts in outreach, and they'll tell you different things. Some of the people are going to tell you like, hey, you need like 23 touch points before somebody responds and you get to a meeting with them. And like, I find that is annoying. And today, I think outreach is harder than ever because of all of the noise, and it's just cheap. Outreach is cheap, outbound is cheap, scalable. And people are just doing anything and everything to stand out. And just like, how many cold messages do you receive a day? I don't know. I receive a lot.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So I don't know if it's going to work for everybody. Like, if it's going to work for you, you have to be niche, you have to be very specific, you have to be very relevant to the customer's needs. But for us, for Rupt, like, we've been, after the first few, we've been getting the bulk of our customers from just word of mouth, referrals, SEO, people searching for us rather than like it's a pull rather than us pushing. Like people are just coming and you know we're lucky enough to be trying to keep up with the demand, not the other way around.
Okay. So when you started doing LinkedIn messaging, did you have essentially zero paying customers? Like that was the first channel that hit for you? Did
Yep,
you have
that was from
struggles? Well, like, did you have struggles getting them to use like that initial version, or did you give like a product demo? Like, how did you sell them on
nothing. And I think this is the measure of like build. Like it may vary depending on your product and whatnot, but nothing. Just that message, right? Some people asked for demos. People that asked for demos or meetings, I gave them demos and meetings. Like I'm not a salesperson, right? Um, but the ones that did not, we just built a good onboarding flow, and that's that, right? There's a good onboarding flow that walks you into the integration, and that was that. Um, but that is now, like looking back at it, that is a testament to how, like, how valuable is your product to them, right? Or how much like they care about solving that pain.
it? Yeah, that's fair. I just ask all these questions because I'm in this process right now and haven't had success, and I'm trying to keep learning to find someone.
So no, I understand, but uh, things. If I were to go back, like things that I would do differently are like a lot of the times, and even now, like a startup. Uh, so we're 7 months old, right? We just closed our pre-seed round this year, and but the
Congratulations.
thank you so much. It was is a like it was a terrible market, but that's
Yeah,
another story. Fundraising is a different like different thing. But um, the thing is, if I were to go back now, there are a few things that I think are very important in getting from zero to one. One is just make sure you're solving a real pain, right? Now, there are few ways you can like be sure that you're solving a real pain. One is like you know this pain, you're part of multiple companies or like you're part of this industry and you know like this sucks and everybody hates it and like you're solving it, you're just building it, right? And then the question is, are you solving it the right way? Do you have a good execution? Do you have a good product, easy flow, right? So you have a little bit of a different set of problems. But if you're not really sure, like you're solving something that you don't know for a fact that is it is a pain, then there are a few ways to verify that. One, talk to the people who before like who are like the target audience. Tell them like, is this a pain for you? Like, I have this product. Could you use it? Like, just really try to sell to them. Then make sure you're identifying like if you're selling to business customers, make sure you're finding the right uh, target users, like who are the actual users of your product within the business, and talking to them. And then there's the whole decision makers and buying committee, quote unquote. It is a little bit of a jargon and process there, but like getting from zero to one, in my mind, I think if you're talking to 1,000 people and they a bunch of them are bound to accept your request and see your messages and you get nothing, then something's wrong, right? I don't know if you've hit that 1,000 people limit or not, but like you're not. If you're lucky, you're gonna hit it in the first few, like, but you're not. It's gonna take some time.
sure. Um, and I know we spent a lot of time on just like the LinkedIn messaging, but I think it definitely helps me, and I think it'll help a lot of people. But real briefly, what were like the biggest obstacles you had from getting your getting your first few paying customers to scaling it to 1,000 MRR?
So, um, so okay, to 1,000 MRR, the first you said the biggest challenges, right?
Yeah, biggest obstacles yet you ran into.
I mean, I think it's sales. Getting these first early customers is hard. It's hard. It's not, and knowing who to talk to within these companies. So if you're doing B2B and I don't know if you have a background in sales or not, but yeah, B2B sales is kind of a specific thing, and you have to like know who to talk to and who to target, and like there's an art to navigating that. And not knowing that, I wouldn't recommend people like study up on it or anything. It's just something that, um, if you're building something valuable enough, then it'll push people to come. Um, Sustaining, if you're doing this full time, sustaining yourself financially is obviously big stress, right? So dealing with the stress, the the rejections are like gut punches, right? They're not fun. They're not fun at all. But uh, yeah, then but it is better to be rejected for a bad idea than to spend 2 or 3 years of your life building it and then pivoting to something else.
Yeah,
So listen, yeah.
cool. Well, that's all the questions I had. There's one final question I want to ask, which is selfish. But so the project I started building 3 weeks ago, which I'm just finishing up the MVP to launch publicly. It's like a natural language. You can use natural language to generate a MongoDB pipeline, which is like a just a query. Um, and then it displays the results on a graph because I've spent a lot of hours of my life that I won't get back trying to build these pipelines just to analyze like how users are using my products. Um, what are your initial thoughts on the biggest obstacles I'll have to overcome? And feel free to be very critical.
So the first few thoughts in my mind, um, is number one. Oh, there's a lot of thoughts, but number one, who are your target audience? Are they developers? Is your target audience developers, or is it like product managers?
In my mind, it's like developers that work on a side project, so pretty much like indie hackers. But this has yet to be proven. I'm just kind of trying all the marketing channels and cold messaging people. So yeah.
Okay, so for Mongo, just for reference, we use MongoDB, but um, I'm struggling to see how we can use it because for developers, um, do you know anybody like personally who would be a customer of yours who could like benefit?
So I run this other website called the Bike Challenge where we run a cycling challenge for a Fortune 500 company every month, or not every month, but it's 1 month and we do two a year. And my dad is manages like the actual challenge and is in charge of like running it at the company. So he's always asking me like, how many kilometers were ridden so far on this challenge?
I
Like how
see.
many, give me a ranking of the top 10 walkers, and then he posts in like the company group. So I kind of built it for
Okay.
non-technical people to analyze these problems
Okay,
easily.
there we go. There we go. See that gives me a little more. That's a much better way of articulating your startup than the technical part that you described. The way you described it, you're like, it's a AI text generation or like pipeline generation for, right? But
Yeah,
what you're really trying to solve is, I have this non-technical person who wants data, who wants to extract data, visual data from databases, and they either have to rely on someone to do it, right, or hire somebody to do it, or like it's inexpensive. So why can't they just speak to their data? Why can't they just like ask the questions and then it will automatically give them data, right? See,
yeah,
that's a
exactly.
much bigger problem, and it affects it's a much bigger opportunity for these people. I can imagine. You see how you're two different ideas, right? That is a building block. You're talking about a building block. You want to sell a solution, and the solution, the people who experience this problem are not developers, right? They're the people who want to get information from the data, but they have to rely on other people and like wait for time and give them money. Like they actually spend time and money to get that information. So who would be I don't know how many other people are like your dad and how many other
Yeah.
companies are there. Like I would start there. I would start like, okay, what's the position of your dad? What's the name of the company? How many other organizations are like this exactly? And then talk to them. These people, these are the people that you want to talk to. So it's not developers. I would not recommend developers are your target audience, right?
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
just to give you some a little bit more context or contacts. I can't never pronounce that word. Uh, this specific idea of talking to your data is being funded by millions and millions of dollars, right? Tens of millions of dollars are being poured into it. Just like I know at least 5 companies who've raised 50 million total, right? Just building like this premise, talk to your data. Just instead of like running all these complicated queries, just ask your question. The AI generation will generate all of these scripts and pipelines and all of that stuff, and then just give you the data right away. It's a good idea. Is what I'm saying is it's a good idea. A lot of people are thinking about it. There's a lot of money being poured into it. There's good applications for it. I don't know if this
Cool.
feedback was helpful or not.
Oh, well, I think it was very helpful, especially just explaining my idea in a way that doesn't just throw a bunch of the latest AI jargon into a sentence. Um, I think that helped me kind of understand the value that I'm actually providing. So I
Yeah,
really
but
appreciate it.
my guess, so my like my intuition is if you're going to sell this to developers, you're not going to have success, even if you reach out to 1,000 people, right?
Yeah.
Like so, but it's probably good feedback because you're selling the wrong thing to the wrong people. You're still the you're but the problem you're solving is for a different set of people. It's not for developers. So you should
So
be
I gotta
reaching out,
find those people.
right, and you should articulate like your solution and build your solution that way. So you're not building a MongoDB pipeline generation tool. You're building a speak to your data visualization tool, right? Without
Okay.
developers, cut the time, cut this guy. And then you're all of you, but like when you change this perspective, all of your screenshots, all of your landing page, all of your copy, everything changes to talk to these customers to make explain this idea well to them. It converts. It converts. It makes a big difference. How like if you're targeting the right people with the right idea, with the right solution. Sorry, not idea.
Okay. No, that is super helpful. I really appreciate it. And just thanks again for being willing to be the first episode. I think this was super valuable because it helped me a lot. So I know it'll help a lot of the other people trying to find their first few customers. So yeah, thank you.
I hope no problem. You're very welcome. I hope it was helpful. I know it was very, very difficult and stressful times for me. So that's why this is my first podcast, so I don't really do podcasts. I've rejected many. But this one like struck a chord with me. I'm like, oh, so I hope it was helpful. And if you need anything, we can happy to help in the future.
Sounds great. Well, thank you and have a great rest of your day.
You too. Take care now. Bye.